Caesar, my God, are countless, and exceedingly plenteous are your compassions. All the raindrops are counted by you, and the sand of the sea is before your eyes. How much more are they?
A really easy topic today. What is the meaning of life? Lockdown and pandemic have made us reevaluate so much of our lives. So many things that we thought were essential turned out not to be so important. And some things that we thought were optional turned out to be crucial, and we've really started to appreciate them. But how do you decide what matters and what doesn't matter in your life? Some philosophers distinguish between two kinds of meaning. On the one hand, you have meaning in life, and on the other hand, you have the meaning of life. So I'm just going to explain the difference between these two. Let's begin with meaning in life. Everybody finds meaning in life. We are always setting ourselves projects, goals, things to achieve. And then striving to achieve those things gives us meaning in life. So for example, I want to get that particular job. I want to get a promotion. I want to get married. I want to start a family. I want to make some more money. I want to buy certain things. I want to go certain places. All of these are goals that we set for ourselves to give us meaning in life. And we think that that is all the meaning we need. But it actually doesn't work. And particularly as you get older, I think you realize why this doesn't work. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer talked about a cycle of desire and boredom, and desire and boredom, and desire and boredom, a never-ending cycle, alternating between those two things. I want this job. It seems like all I have to do to be happy and fulfilled and find meaning in my life is to get this job. And then I get the job, and I work there for a year or two, and I start to get bored with it. So what do? I come up with another desire, and then I need to get that promotion, and I get the promotion, and after a while I get bored with it. Desire and boredom. So that's one reason why simply just making up these goals for ourselves doesn't really give us fulfillment in our lives. There's actually a good reason for this. The goals that we set are somewhat arbitrary. You can understand this if you think of, the annoying child who's always asking why. I really want to get this job. Why? Because then I'll make some money. Why? Because then I'll be able to buy things. Why? Because when I have that thing, I'll be happy. Why? And the whys can go on and on and on. You see, ultimately, meaning has to be meaning for someone. There's no such thing as just meaning floating in the air by itself. It always has to mean something for someone. And what means something to you may mean nothing to someone else. For example, in modern Western society, in countries like Australia, it means a lot to people to be able to buy a home. But in many countries in the world, most people never buy a home. They rent. And in some cultures, people don't even live in homes. What would buying a house mean to an indigenous person living in a desert as a nomad? Houses mean nothing to them. So these kinds of meaning in life are always very narrow, very limited. And if you prod them, if you push them, if you dissect them, you find that they're actually empty inside. So the ideal would not be these kinds of meaning in life, which don't seem to get us very far in the long term. The ideal that we should be looking for is a meaning of life rather than meaning in life. A meaning of life would be something that applies to every person, wherever they live, whatever their culture, whatever their lifestyle. It turns out to be very hard to find a meaning of life unless you turn to God. Remember, meaning is always meaning for someone, but none of us human beings is big enough to be the reason for something to mean something to everyone in the whole world. Just because it means something to me doesn't mean it's going to mean something to anybody else. And even meaning that we share as a group or as a society or as a civilization is still only just for that group. It's not a meaning of life. It just happens to be a community meaning in life. It's stuff that we agree to care about. But why should we care about it? Someone from outside that group would think that it's probably not worth caring about. So if there is a meaning of life, not just a meaning in life for a few people, but a meaning of life for the whole world, it can only come from God. It can only come from the one who created the whole world. What matters to the creator of the world matters to his whole creation and everything in it. And by the way, this is an argument for the existence of God, right? Because a lot of people actually do believe that there is a meaning of life, an objective meaning, one that doesn't just depend on your own opinion or how you feel. And people would say things like love and goodness and truth are that kind of meaning of life. But if you agree that such things really do matter, then the only way you can make them matter to everyone in the world is by having a transcendent being to whom they matter. Otherwise, they're just not universal. So, what is this meaning of life? What kinds of things matter universally to everyone? Well, Christianity puts into words those kinds of things that really everyone in the world feels in their hearts are the things that really, really matter. And we've mentioned them already. Love, goodness, truth. In Christianity, God is love. God is the one who is good and the source of all good. And God is truth, as I mentioned in my couple of videos on truth a couple of weeks ago. These things matter because they are the nature of God. And this is the meaning of life from the Christian perspective. To become like God, to become loving, to become genuinely, authentically good, to live in truth, all by nature, not just for show, not just play acting or doing it on the outside. So if this pandemic is making you rethink about the meaning of your life, don't just replace personal meaning in life with more personal meaning in life. Don't just replace little temporary goals that will ultimately not fulfill you and make you bored with them with some more temporary goals that will ultimately make you bored and feeling unfulfilled. Think instead about the meaning of life, the meaning of life for any human being in this world, and how that applies to you personally. What is the meaning of life in your life? Not just on your own individual level either, but socially. What would our society look like if more people cared about the true meaning of life? What would a society look like if it was more loving, if it was kinder, if we cared more about things being good rather than things being expensive or, giving us a buzz for a little while? What would society look like if we all really cared about the truth? And what about church? What is your purpose in going to church and in dealing with church, having been deprived of the physical chance to go into a church these days? I think we're all rethinking, what is church to me? So this is a really good question to apply this to. Are you interacting with church just to get your little own personal goals? Is that what church is to you? Or are you using church to help you to find a meaning of life, the truly fulfilling meaning of life? You see, a fulfilling life is not just one where you get what you want, but it is a life where you go beyond your own little bubble and into the hugeness and fullness of God's love and goodness and truth. Such a life is not only better, but it also makes you feel better. Which brings me to today's joke. And thanks to Joshua Fitzsimons for this, by the way. Why did the cookie go to the doctors? Because he was feeling crummy. Thanks, Josh. God bless.
Your mercies, O my God, are countless, and exceedingly plenteous are your compassions. All the raindrops are counted by you, and the sand of the sea is before your eyes. How much more are the sins of my soul manifest before you, O my Lord? Sins that I have committed, do not remember, my Lord, and do not count my iniquity. For you have chosen the publican and the adulteress you have saved, and the right-hand thief, my Lord, you have remembered. And I to the sinner, teach me, O my Lord, to offer repentance. For you do not desire the death of a sinner, but rather that he returns and that his soul may live. Restore us, O God, to your salvation, and deal with us according to your goodness. For you are good and merciful. Let your compassion speedily come to us. Compassion upon us, O Lord God, our Savior, and have mercy upon us according to your great mercy. Remember those, O Christ our Master, be among us, and proclaim and say, my peace I give to you, the peace of my Father I live with you. O King of peace, grant us your peace, establish for us your peace, and forgive us our sins. Disperse the enemies of the church, and fortify her that she may not be shaken forever. Emmanuel, our God, is now in our midst with the glory of his Father and the Holy Spirit. May he bless us all and purify our heart and heal the sicknesses of our souls and bodies. We worship you, O Christ, with your good Father and the Holy Spirit, for you have come and saved